All right, group. What I'm going to try to do at the end of every week is provide an overview of what we discussed in the previous class sessions. So let's do a quick wrap up on week 2 before we move on to week 3. We started the week by talking about the main components of sociological research and why it's important and how to ethically engage in it. We talked a little bit about the Stanford Prison Experiment, and we'll be talking about that later in the semester as well. Another experiment that's pretty well known but we didn't get a chance to talk about was the Milgram experiment. This was a study about authority and obedience and how far people might go. The hypothesis was that when someone is told or given power, people wouldn't go against any sort of authority figure, and when they internalize that power, they would do things they wouldn't otherwise normally do. So what happened in this particular experiment was there were two participants who sat on either side of a wall, and the person being studied, like the gentleman we see here, was given a list of questions to ask the other person. Anytime the person on the other side of the wall got the answer wrong, then the participant of the study was told to shock them. And with each shock, the strength of the shock got progressively stronger. While the participants became increasingly upset that they had to issue these shocks, they continued to do so even when they thought they were causing pain because they didn't want to go against authority. In both cases of these studies, what we're seeing is from an ethical standpoint, should the studies have been conducted? Because of course our goal, we should always seek to do no harm. We'll talk again more about this particular issue later when we talk about social control and deviance. During the second half of our time together this week, we talked about the main theories in sociology. And we discussed symbolic interactionism, functional analysis, and conflict theory. Now, one thing that perhaps I didn't stress enough was it's really important we understand the interconnectedness of these theories, that they can be quite hard to separate. And in reality, if any one of them is missing, we lose that holistic analysis of our society. With symbolic interactionism, what we're really talking about here are the labels and symbols that we use to organize thought and make sense of our world. We use these labels so that we can operate within the spaces that we live in safely. Labels and symbols, as we discussed, have a different meaning for different people, and the example that I tend to use is that of the Confederate flag. So for some folks, this is a symbol of nationalism and pride. It's a symbol of American history where we fought for independence, yet for others, it creates feelings of fear and depression. So what we end up with is people that live among one another and end up with quite divergent views and a range of emotional reactions when they see this one piece of fabric. And that's really the gut of this theory. The fact that we can assign labels to things and then based on the value system that we attach to that particular thing helps us to define the society that we live in. Now, the second theory that we talked about was the functional analysis theory. And this particular theory takes a look at the tools that we have in our lives. And the theory says that everything we have is here for a reason. And if any one of these things, one of these structures, one of these behaviors or dynamics go away, then we wouldn't be able to function as a society. In essence, there's a reason for all of everything that exists. The final theory that we talked about was conflict theory. And in conflict theory, what we're really talking about is oppression or the systems of oppression that are put in place to maintain the power dynamics of the haves versus the have-nots. Conflict theory says that without conflict, we wouldn't be able to operate in society as we know it. So that concludes a review of week 2 in Soc 190. I do want to give you a heads up that as we move along, you'll start to see the online content increasing. Go ahead and consider that homework. Use that material as supplemental material for our classes as you prepare for our class discussions and activities, and it'll be helpful for you as you prepare to take your weekly quiz. As always, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and enjoy the long weekend. I'll see you next Thursday.